Hello, this is Literacy Ready History Unit 2, Lesson 4, Annotating a Chapter, the Cuban Missile Crisis. In this lesson, students are going to read a part of a chapter about the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's an excerpt about the Cuban Missile Crisis in the chapter, and they're going to take the information that they learned in that chapter and integrate it with the notes that they took from the previous lesson, which was a lecture. And finally, they're going to characterize the Cuban Missiles Crisis's causes and effects using a history pattern organizer. The first thing they're going to do in Activity 1 is they're going to get oriented to the task of reading the chapter excerpt on the Cuban Missile Crisis. And they have not seen this particular chapter yet, so one of the things they're going to do is they're going to preview the chapter, and they're going to learn a little bit about the authors of the chapter, considering whether the authors are biased or not, and what is included in the chapter and what might be excluded from the chapter. So these are important things that historians do. In fact, historians emphasize that there is no kind of reading, even textbook reading, that should not be open to question. So one of the things you want to help students do is to learn to question the text. Now, reading a chapter may not be something that students have done a lot of in high school. However, it is something that students will be doing a lot of in college, so it's really important to get them into this kind of reading. So when they preview the chapters, students might see that Tyndall and Shy include both the Civil Rights Movement and U.S. foreign affairs in the same chapter. This might be puzzling to some, and so what you want to do is you want to discuss why they would do such a thing. Also, they might note that the sections are particularly short. That is, there's not very much written about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Prior to that, what they're reading is about the Bay of Pigs fiasco. Both of those sections are very short. And they might be wondering about that as well, because in order to make them short, Tyndall and Shy had to leave out a lot of information, and it's information that they might find is key as they continue on in the rest of their reading. So in activities 2 and 3, what they're doing is they are reading and analyzing a history text. They're annotating that text as they do that analysis. And one thing they're going to be doing to analyze the text is using a strategy called G-Sprite. G-Sprite is just a reminder, it's a mnemonic, a way of that they should be paying attention to certain elements of societal functioning as they read the text. So G stands for geographic, S stands for social, P stands for political, R stands for religious, I for intellectual, T for technological, and E for economic. So as they read, they're going to be looking for those elements in the way that history is being interpreted by Tyndall and Shy. And they're also going to pay attention to the other historically relevant information that they are learning as they read history. This is a review for people who have been involved in Unit 1, and they've done a little bit of this already in Unit 2, but there is a reminder about this kind of information on page 50 and 51 of the Teacher's Guide. Now they're also going to read a paragraph and analyze it, and they're going to analyze a text excerpt, and then of course they're going to read and annotate the Tyndall and Shy excerpt. So if students have not completed Unit 1, this part of the lesson is really critical because this is where they learn to annotate, and this is where they learn to read chapters in history. So you might need to model the kind of interpretation that's discussed in this chapter. Therefore, a paragraph is provided for you in the Teacher's Guide, and what you want to do is read it ahead of time, know how you will analyze it before you share your analysis with students. And you'll also need to model the annotation process and provide some group practice and feedback before students actually get in to annotating the chapter excerpt. This is true if students have not completed Unit 1. If they have completed Unit 1, then this is a good review for them. So after they finish reading, students are going to engage in an open-ended discussion. That is, you're going to start with some discussion starters such as what did you notice, what did you learn, what are the things that you think are important, and have students engage in that kind of free discussion about what they just read. And if they get to the end of this discussion and there are some things that they're missing that would help them with a deep analysis of the text, there are some specific questions in the teacher's guide that you can ask students to complete. Also, students are going to be talking through the discipline-specific vocabulary words, and they've done this before in other lessons, so this is a repeat of the kinds of things that they've been doing before, doing the talk through, and they're going to interpret some general academic vocabulary that's within sentences that were taken out of the textbook chapter. In Activity 5, they are adding notes from the text in their Cornell notes. So what they're doing is they're taking all the information that they learned in the history textbook excerpt, and they're going back to their notes from the previous lesson, lesson 3, and they're putting the new and or different information in that empty column next to the information that corresponds to it. And when they finish that, then they're going to complete the pattern organizer, which I'll talk about in a minute.